So here we have the two legs done. We have the left and right leg. You can see the yarn marker travels all the way around the leg like so, and this is allowed for in the pattern, as the crochet when you're making amigurumi does twist like that. So this particular doll, this alien type doll, mostly I like to have my feet pointing out slightly, but I've decided that I'm going to make this doll slightly pigeon-toed, so I'm going to move the legs like so. What we're going to do is we're going to mark the two legs. So the left leg here, the left leg here is marked is the yellow one, the right leg is the orange one. You can see that there. And you can see that I've just twisted that slightly so that the toes are pointing inward, a little bit of character. So we're going to start by flattening the ends of the legs like so. And for the left leg, I'm going to turn it up and show you a little bit closer. So for our left leg, what we're going to do is we're going to find those middle two stitches, and we're going to place our marker in just below that. So this is where our first stitch is going to go. The two middle stitches will be in where the gusset is going to be, so that will be the inside part. And then if I follow that down, you can see that that leg is going to be slightly twisted inwards. Okay, so that's that leg there. So that's the left leg. So we're working in we always work in a clockwise direction, so the marker is 2 stitches clockwise from that middle. From the middle, we're just going just down a little bit, so that the gusset will come in here, and then we work around and then along the gusset into the next leg. On the right leg, we're going to start from down here, and we're going to work up, and this is the right leg pointing in slightly. We're going to flatten the end and then bring it up. Now we've got a complication in that this is now over near where the join is, but we are going to do our first stitch. So we're going to go into this stitch, so that these 2 stitches, so one of those is the slip stitch at the end of the round, and then this, so that's that 1 and 2, and so this will be the last one of that round. So when we're joining, we're going to join in onto this stitch, and then we work around in a clockwise direction, going round and then go the other end of the gusset. So I'm just going to make sure that marker is in place. So then what we do is we bring our gusset over, and you can see that I have made this with a long tail. So we've got a long tail here, so that we're ready for sewing. And my hook is already in the top of the gusset, and we're just going to take our left leg and we're going to insert our hook into the marked stitch. We make a double crochet just straight away, so it's like we're continuing the row. We're just going to make our double crochet there. Then we're going to do 13 more double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and I will see you at once I've completed that circle. So here where we have the join, so we slip stitched here and joined to this bit here. So what I do is I usually skip over that last slip stitch and then go straight in to the stitch that the slip stitch went into, if that makes sense. And that kind of makes sure that the join is nice and clean. And I've got, I think, 2 more stitches after that. So we now have our 14 stitches around, and we've got 2 stitches spare here, and you can see the gusset here, and we're going to work along this edge of the gusset. So the first stitch that we're going into is this one, and we're going to make our double crochet in there, and then we're going to double crochet all the way along the gusset. So we're going to make 6 stitches along the gusset. I'll see you at the end. Once we've gone along the edge of the gusset, we're going to start into the next leg where our stitch marker is. So that's going to be the first stitch in this round, and we do exactly the same as we did before. We're just going straight from the gusset straight into here with our hook and then making our double crochet. We then do 13 more double crochets, so 14 double crochets in total, which will mean that we have 2 stitches at the end that we won't have gone into. I will see you at the end of this round. So I have now completed that round. I'm going to take the stitch marker out again because we don't really need it in there and it just confuses things. And we are going to go along the other edge of the gusset. So you can see we don't want it twisted, we need to keep it nice and flat, and we're just going straight from this leg into that stitch over there, the first stitch on the gusset, and then we're going to do our 6 stitches along the edge of the gusset. 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then I'm going to just put a stitch marker in there so that it doesn't come out, and we're going to sew in the ends. So we're going to start at this end here where we've got our long tail. We're going to put that onto a needle. So I thread a needle like this. I take the needle, I split the yarn a little bit, kind of scrape them out a little bit, the tail end, and then flatten it and keep it over the top of the needle nice and flat. Pull out the needle and then, keeping it in place with the thumbnail, just push it through the needle and out the other side. And I've always succeeded with that method. I was taught that by my nana. So we can take the stitch marker out of the way, and so that you can see the end. And what we're going to do, we're going to keep the tail end of the leg inside the leg, and we're going to go under the stitch and under the row end of the gusset. Just bring it round. So we're coming from the gusset side and it's like an over sewing stitch. Okay, take that out of the way. We're a bit close to that tail there. There we go. That's better. So you can see. Okay, so we pull it tight. We don't pull it tight, we just pull it nice and snug. Then we do the same thing. We find the next stitch in the green on the leg, and then we go into the end of the next row here, just into that sort of lumpy bit, and then we pull it, don't get tangled, so we're going to pull it nice and firmly but not too tight. We don't want it to be too tight. Snug is what I like to say. And then we're going to go into the last actual stitch and we're going to make a knot. Now how I make a knot is I do an overhand stitch, wait till I get back to the loop here. Okay, so I've got a loop, and then I go through twice, front to back. Let's take that orange bit out. So we're going to go through the loop twice like so, so it looks like an overhand knot, and then pull that tight. Okay, so that side is now fixed, and then we're going to run our needle through the stitches here. Now I always feel my way across underneath those stitches so that the needle doesn't show on either side. Not that it matters too much because the colour is the same. And so we're going through to here, all the way through to here, and then pull it through. And again, we don't want this to be too tight, so stretch it out so that it's not too tight. And I'm going to just turn it around. And then we're going to do the same thing on this end. So we're going to find the stitch down here, the blue one, and the end of the row here. Make sure that that yarn is on the other side so that it's a clear stitch, like so. And then we're going to do the same again. We find that stitch in the blue, and then we're going to go into the end of the row there. Make sure that the loop itself stays to the top of your stitch there. And then we're going to do one in the end, and we're going to do a knot. So we're going to go in to the stitches like so, and then go around our needle twice. Be a bit fiddly sometimes, like so. So we've gone round twice, the loop twice round our needle, and then pull that through and tighten it up. You can then take the needle off and snip the yarn a bit shorter. At this point, it's good to check the alignment of your legs and make sure that you're happy with them, because you can always just go back. In fact, you can probably check before you sew in the ends, just to check that the alignment is exactly how you want it to be. I'm quite happy with that, with the two slightly pigeon-toed legs, and you can see at that end how that's going to work. So we're going to now turn over and go back to the body, and I'm going to zoom in and show you what we're going to do next. So here is the stitch holder we put on, so we're going to take that off and pop our hook back in. And then before we do our next stitch, we're going to place our yarn marker. Now, I do recommend that you use a different colour so that you can tell where the body starts, exactly where the body starts. Obviously, when you've changed colour like this for the pants, it's quite easy to see where you've done that first round, the joining round. However, if you've got the bloomers, it's not quite as obvious. And so putting a change of yarn marker in at this point is a really good idea. The yarn marker will then work up the back of the body as we work the body itself. So our first stitch is going to be in here, and then we carry on with our first round with our different coloured yarn marker. So I'm going to see you next when we join the arms. When we're attaching the arms, we have to make sure that the thumb is going to line up so that it's at the front of your doll. So this is the back of the doll, and I've just done my 7 double crochet stitches before attaching the arm. So the arm will be attached just here, and you can see that the thumb is pointing forwards. Okay, so that when it's attached, it's facing in the right direction, and it should be slightly forward of the center point of the body. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate this on a different color so that you can see the stitches a bit clearer. But what we're going to be doing is going to add the next 6 double crochets along using this limb, but I'm going to actually do it on a smaller, different coloured sample so that you can see the technique a little easier. So I'm just going to pop my hook in here, and what we're going to do is, after we've discovered which way round our hand is going to be, we're going to flatten the end here, and then we're going to start by going in through the front loop here, and the back 2 loops, front 2 loops and the back 2 loops on the end there. So they're 2 loops that are actually next to each other, and we have almost like 1 bar at the back there. That's absolutely fine. We then find the stitch that we're going to attach to, we yarn over and we pull it through, and then we yarn over and pull through the 2 loops to finish the double crochet. Now this limb only has 11 stitches, so we have to make up a stitch, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So the next stitch here is going to be fine. We're going to go in to underneath the 2 strands there. We're going to go into the next stitch there under 2 strands, and we're going to go into the what would be the body. And so we've got our 6 strands, we yarn over and we pull through all 6, yarn over, pull through 2. Now where we've done a slip stitch join, what we need to do is we need to be able to go into the stitch that's the slip stitch has gone into and the slip stitch. So for the next one at the front, we're just going into the next stitch. We're then going to find the stitch that we put the slip stitch into. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this one, so you can see that that loop there is where the slip stitch went into when we finished off the arm. Okay, so we're going into that one. So we've gone into the front one, into a back one, and then we're going into the next stitch here, which is this one. Sometimes you just have to check whether you've used the one before. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over through 2, and then we're going to the next stitch and we're going into the top of the slip stitch. Hopefully you can see that. So we've gone into the top of the slip stitch. Effectively we're making it going into 12 stitches because we've got 6 stitches here on the arm folded up. So we're going in under there. Now where the end is, we're going to put that to the inside of the body, and then we're going to make our next double crochet. The next one is fairly straightforward, so we're going under the 2 front loops, 2 back loops, and into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through 2, and the last one always looks a bit dodgy because it's like the beginning where we've actually got the 2 loops right next to each other, but when you go in under the 4 loops there, you actually kind of just have the bar of one there, but that's absolutely fine. We then go into the next stitch on the body, yarn over, pull it through everything, and then yarn over and pull through. If I do another couple of stitches just to show you, there we go. And then if you have a look, you can see how secure that is. We've just got our 6 stitches going over the top of the arm. Let's get that out of the way for you. So we've got our 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 going over the top of the arm. We have the tail end on the inside, and on the underside you can't even see the join, but you can see where we've picked up 6 stitches in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how we secure the arms on. This one's stuffed. I do leave a little bit of flatness at the top just because it's easier to attach, but that makes it really nice and secure. The limb has been crocheted in and that's not going anywhere. When you make the bobble for the nose, you may need to adjust. This one had to be moved quite a distance round on the row. What we want to make sure is that the bobble is following the centre line so that the nose is lined up with the rest of the body. So we have to think about the placement of the eyes. For this doll, I've decided to use 15mm eyes, and I'm going to place them fairly close to the nose. I'm just going to try that and see what that looks like. So you can get an idea of what your doll's character is going to be by the position of their eyes. You might want them a bit wider or a bit higher. So if I go over by a stitch over here, so you can see that that gives a completely different look to the face. And obviously when you're doing the mouth as well, that will create a different look as well. I quite like this look. I've got quite narrow dolls, so I think I might keep these here. So once we've decided exactly where we want to have the eyes, what we can do is we can put the permanent back on. Now once this is done, this is permanent. The only way that I know of to take them out is to actually undo your crochet down to whereabouts the eye is, and then it will come out as part of that undoing frogging process. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the little plastic back. You can see that it looks a bit like a little funnel, and it's got some little spikes here. So the spikes have to go in towards the fabric there, and we're just going to place that on like so. We put our thumbs on one side, our fingers on the other, and then we need to push really hard to get the plastic to go on. So we're going, and there. Could you hear those clicks? That means that that's not coming off again. And what we do is we just keep pushing until there, another one, that's secure. That won't go any further. You can see it's almost like slightly indented into your crochet there. I will explain with the other eyes in a moment about if you want to have a white back, a white felt back, or if you want to do any other details. So I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. I might come in a little bit closer. There we go. So you can see that that's the eye put in position all the way through to the back. We have our little, I suppose like a little flying saucer, isn't it? With the little spikes on the bottom. The spikes are the ones that you want down towards the fabric on the top of your eye there, and then we're going to push really hard, thumbs on one side, and I found it best to use like the sides of my fingers and just push really hard, and you can hear the clicks. That's not quite all the way in, so I'm just going to make sure, there we go, one more click, and you can see how nice and tight that is around there. So that's your eyes. Once you've done that, you can't move them. So here is doll number 1 that I did, and she has 9mm eyes that are quite close to her nose and a little mouth. So you might prefer that with 9mm eyes. So for this doll we had 15mm eyes. You can see that her nose is here and her eyes are a little bit further away, and she has little pieces of white felt. So if you make this shape, you can trim it down later as well, but if you make a little cross, snip a little cross into the felt so that you can insert the eye in there, and then you put the back on in the same way, but she's got like little white bits there. I am thinking of actually embroidering maybe some eyelashes for her. She's got a slightly larger mouth, and you can see that I've actually done that with 2 strands, so I've gone over those stitches twice. I do try and make sure that I'm going into actual holes of stitches. That just, to me, just keeps it a nice neat finish there. Then we have this doll, number 3, and her eyes are a little bit further apart, and she's got a bigger piece of felt. We've got a very similar mouth but in a different colour, and her nose is in the middle here, so she's quite different to the other two. And then obviously our final one at the moment, or sorry, number 4 at the moment. I don't know what I'm going to do with the green bodied one yet, but number 4 here has got her eyes quite far apart. You can then sew the mouth on here so that you don't have any problems with sewing the ends in when you're getting on the inside, so you can access the inside quite nicely. The safety eyes have to be done before you finish and before you stuff the doll. So that is the body and the eyes. So I think with wide eyes we're going to need to have at least as wide a mouth as one of the other couple of dolls. So I'm going to thread my needle, so that's my needle threaded. I'm not going to put a knot on the end, we don't need to, because we're going to start by finding the center point for this one's mouth. So I think that she might need to be 2 lines of stitching down from the nose, sorry. 2 lines of stitching down from the nose, and trying to make my first stitch is going to be central, so I'm identifying that, and then I'm going to come up through that like so. Pull it, but not so that it's right to the end. So pull it through a little bit, and then following the stitches I'm going to go down and then up the next one, and then I'm going to go up here. I think that would be nice. Then I come back down, and you can see that that's my first kind of loop going underneath here, and then I'm going to do this so that it's the same on the other side. So we're going to go over a small loop here and then up over to here, do the same thing back. You can see that now we've got 1 line for her mouth, and I might actually leave it at that, I'm not sure. No, maybe I'll do it again. Okay, so we are here, so we can go back in to the same place that we started and do the same stitches. So we're going to go over into this stitch, and under the small stitch there, I'll go over this big one and back again. You can either have them side to side or kind of cross them over, it won't really matter. Going back down in here, up again, down in here, and then up again. I think I'll do it that side. Okay, you can see how it's becoming a little bit more defined, and then we're going to do the same thing again here, up to this stitch. Keep the tension nice and even as you do it, and then I'm going to actually cross over because I can see that this is slightly down here, so I'm going to just go there just to make it nice and even. Okay, so once we've finished, we can pull that a little bit more. There we go. So you can see that we've got a nice even little row of stitches. She's got a little smile about her. And then what we can do, since we're at the end here, to just snip the end off. And since we can reach inside nice and easily, and my 2 ends are close together, I'm just going to knot them. You won't notice this knot at all, and I will do it about 3 times, 1, 2, 3, just to make sure that it doesn't come undone. There we go, and then the ends will just be tucked inside, and then we've got our face. I quite like that. To finish off at the top of the head, I'm going to just show you this in a contrast colour. We have 6 stitches left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to go under the front loop of each of those stitches with our needle, like so. So that's, you might want to do this 2 at a time. So you can see that I'm doing this in a contrast colour. You'll obviously do this in the same colour. So I've done 2, 3 and 4. And then the last 2 here, 5. And you can see that I'm coming from underneath up to the top. Blunt needles are always useful because they don't split the wool quite as much. Then you make that nice and tight, pull it in tight, and you can see that it looks a bit like the start of any of your limbs. So where we've got a magic ring start. So this imitates that. But to finish it off, we're going to go from the outside into the centre, and we're going to make several stitches from the outside into the centre, just to make sure that the end is nice and tight. You can do these in random directions, you can do them in the same direction, that's completely up to you. And we're going to go around at least 6 stitches and come down a little further than just the round that we've just done. So you can see we can go into a stitch here and bring it up through the middle, another stitch here, bring it up through the middle, and maybe one more. And when I finish off, what I then do is I make a knot by just doing a little wind like so. So that we're making almost like an overhand knot. Tighten that up right into the centre there, and then poke your needle down into the head and then out at the bottom somewhere. Pull it down so that that pulls in. Snip the end close, and then it will just disappear, boop, 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 like so. And then we have a nice flat end that's really secure. Remember, we're going to have a wig cap to put over the top of this as well, so you won't be able to see that at all. And that's the end of the head.